I hate almost every single character.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Summerween. That's right, we're doing a little bit of a reading vlog. And it's currently day 4 when I'm filming this. So, trying to read our Summerween TBR. I've got my 4 pink books here that we're going to attempt to read and see how far we can get before the week is out. Whoa. Hello. It is day 2 of Summerween. I did not update you yesterday, but I did a lot of reading because I got about 75% of the way through How to Kill a How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates, and actually finished it this morning. So we've got one book down. We're doing awesome. We are 25% of the way through my TBR, and that feels really nice to say. But we'll chat about this book a little bit. I think this book is hard to have like a full conversation about without there being spoilers because it is like a slasher. So like who's going to die? What's the reveal? All that kind of stuff. I can't really talk to you about it. So what is there to say? I'm going to bring you down here a little bit so we're a little more face to face. Do you like my cherry shirt? I keep wanting to sing Sweet Cherry Pie, and I think of like that scene from Off Campus. Sweet cherry pie. Woo! Anyway, so yeah, I had a good time with this book. It was a fast read. I was interested. I do love a good slasher, so we really kept the momentum throughout this book, and I gave it a 3.5. And that is a full enjoyment 3.5. Really, my critiques are critiques that maybe aren't warranted for a book like this that is obviously paying a lot of homage to both rom-coms and slashers. But I just felt that the character journey, her development as a character, our character Jamie, was a little forced for me. I guess I didn't feel like the setup was good enough for her internal struggle that she was having outside of the external one that we're having with this killer. I'm trying to, is that any better? I don't know. So I felt like it was a little forced, and like I get the idea, like they always tell you for stories, you need to have a character arc. Your character needs to grow and change by the end of the story. But I was like, I don't know if that was necessary for this. Like, this is a slasher. In the end, a slasher / rom-com, because that's kind of the thesis of Jamie's paper that she talks about in the beginning, and I feel like that is a through line throughout the book. And I was like, I don't know if this was actually necessary. I feel like we could have just let it be what it was and not try to make this bigger message for the character, because that just didn't really land for me. It felt a little cheesy. Like I said, it felt forced. I did guess who the killer was. I did guess, and I was right. I knew from pretty much the beginning and had a pretty good idea of how things would play out. And I actually told my partner that when I was explaining the book to him, I was like, within the first 15%, like when we're introduced to the characters in the story outside of our main character and her best friend at this speed dating situation, I had a feeling who it was going to be. I was like, it's either these two characters for me. That's who we're going to be playing around with, like who's the killer, you know what I mean? And I was right. I was like, I'm leaning toward this character, and I'm pretty sure that's who it's going to be, but you never know. And there were some other twists and turns that I was like, either we're going to really lean into the formula of a slasher, or we're going to try to flip it on its head. I thought the way she blended like the rom-com elements and the slasher elements were fun. Like I said, it was fast-paced, it was fun, it gave what I thought it was going to give. And obviously, I read it very quickly. So that's why it's a solid 3.5. Like, is it a book I'm going to, like, think about for however long? Probably not. But sometimes it's good to just have a fun book. And that's what I would say this is. And I didn't give a summary of this. I know I talked about it in my TBR, but basically we're following Jamie. She goes on a speed dating event, and it quickly turns into a slasher where they're like stuck in the building. And then her trying to figure out what's going on, and also realizing that perhaps the killings have to do with a romantic interest and how that plays into everything. So that's pretty much the premise of that. That's kind of the plan. But I mean, I really didn't film much yesterday because I really was just focusing on reading, and we did some stuff. We also did some stuff today. We went and had Korean fried chicken, and we got some bingsu, and then we got some tea. And now we're back, and we're waiting for it to cool down, and then we're going to pull out that splash pad and, have ourselves a good old time. But for now, yeah, just hanging out. Wanted to chat with you guys, check in, talk about the book. Hello, it is day 4, so it's Monday. I have not read anything more since we last checked in. I attempted one chapter of One Dark Summer, and I attempted one chapter of The Story of a White Trash Zombie. You know, we've talked about this already. And neither of them were tickling my fancy. Neither of them seemed super interesting at the moment. So I decided to pick up Slasher Summer. I just barely started it, but we had our drive back yesterday. We're going to try reading Slasher Summer. I've been watching Gavin's first Summerween vlog with the baby, and I'm contemplating getting some lunch. I thought baby was going to take a nap, but doesn't seem to be the case. So I think we're going to go grab some Chick-fil-A because we don't currently have like a lot in the house since we just got back yesterday evening. And then hopefully baby will be ready for a nap and I can get a little bit of reading in. So that's our plan. So I will check in with you when I hopefully have an update. Hello. It's a few days later. A video that was going to be a Summerween vlog of a couple days has become just one Summerween vlog because that's where we're at. That's where we're at. But we have made some progress. Yeah.
we have made some reading progress. So last time we checked in, I had mentioned that I was going to try Slasher Summer because I read one chapter of My Life as a White Trash Zombie and One Summer Night and just wasn't really feeling either of those. And so I figured Slasher Summers would be most same vibe, same mood as How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates. So I'm about 60% of the way through Slasher Summer. So I do think we shall finish that before the end of Summerween tomorrow. But we did we did finish our book that is 215 pages less. That was Obstetric by, I'm sorry, I had the audiobook, so I don't have the name right in front of me at the moment. It was like, I think I mentioned it was like 5.5 hours, and I listened to it at 2.5 speed, so I had just about 2 hours to listen. And we were doing we did a little bit of a journey today, met up with some friends, and that gave me 2 hours to listen to the audiobook. And I really enjoyed the short novella. I think it's a novella. I really enjoyed this novella. So the premise of it is we have Liz. She is an obstetrician who was in North Dakota, and she performed a DNR on a woman because she was going through kidney failure. And so speaking with her and everything, that they decided that was the best medical course of action for her. And then things came, basically she gives you the lowdown of how she had to go through a trial. She was acquitted, but she left North Dakota afterwards. And so we start off with her trying to get a new job in Minneapolis, where she's moved to, and she gets this call, and they're like, oh, we're some midwives, and we're looking for an OB just to have on staff, and we got your number from a nurse you used to work with, and we'd love to chat with you. And so she gets drugged, and then she gets taken to a compound of basically like a religious cult, and is being held hostage to perform a C-section for the cult leader's daughter, and is trying to figure out how to get out. And that is the story in general. And it was a good time. I feel like it being novella was like perfect. We, kept our pace. We had like these little vignettes with characters, and there was, her trying to figure out the best way to get out of this place. And yeah, I had a good time. I feel like this was like the perfect length for the story. Anything more probably would have made it drag on a little bit. And yeah, that's really, I had a good time. I was glad I picked it up. I think it's a fairly new release. But yeah, it really goes on. I'm reading Yesteryear with my book club, and I feel like it pairs nicely with Yesteryear. I even recommended it to them if, while we were waiting for a book club, if they finished Yesteryear already, they could, pick it up, and we'd have, a little extra thing to talk about. So that was really fun. And then, yeah, I'm 60% through Slasher Summer. I'm enjoying it. I hate almost every single character. So, the whole idea is that these characters are supposed to be more nuanced characters, but when they get together, they become very one note, very much their prescribed role. And it kind of has to do with, they do, almost in high school, they did, a Rocky Horror-esque situation for this slasher film that was filmed in their town in the 80s. And so they all have their parts that they played in that, and they kind of default into those parts when they're together. So they kind of bring out the worst of each other, I would say. But realistically, I don't know if I'm rooting for any of them. We have our final girl, quote unquote, Carrie, who I believe all of them are named after characters from horror movies. I know at least we have Carrie, we have Michael, we have Jason, Freddie, and then there's Patrick. So I don't know if Patrick, I would have to, I need to look it up to see where Patrick could be from. And then our girls, we have, like I mentioned, we have Carrie, then we have Tiffany, and we have, not Jen? Is it Jen? I think so, and Jen. So Carrie is like the final girl, and she kind of had a bit of like a Carrie-esque moment in high school, and her inner monologue doesn't drive me as crazy. I feel like her troubles that she's had in life make a little bit more sense with her situation. Jason seems okay, and Patrick seems okay. So I guess if I were going to root for characters, those would be the characters that I root for. But like I said, they all kind of get on my nerves. What I do think is funny is, so like I mentioned, like I thought they would be the same vibe because they're slasher adjacent. You know, they're not slasher adjacent. They are like books about slashers. But How to Lose a Guy or How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates also has characters named after horror movie characters. I'm pretty sure like the main character Jamie is probably named after like Jamie Lee Curtis or something like that. Wes, Billy, side characters that were like Michael and Jason and stuff like that. So it seems to be they both are kind of paying homage with character names, which I thought was fun. But yeah, so they're a group of friends. They're meeting up at a cabin, and this cabin is like where that film that they used to do, like the Rocky Horror Picture Story style performance, was filmed, and things start to go awry. Each one of them start to see weird things, and weird things start to happen. And now we've had our first kill from the slasher. And because I don't really like care for any of these characters, I didn't really care about this death. So I feel like that's the only problem I'm really having with the story, is like I'm just not really rooting for anybody. At least in like How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates, I did generally like most of the characters, so I was rooting for them. But this one, I just really don't. I'm like, you're all kind of annoying. So if you die, I don't care. That's the trouble I'm having with it. But I do think I'll be able to finish that before the end of Summerween, which means that I will have finished 2 of the pink books on my TBR. So that's 50%. And I felt like that was doable, having only picked 4 and reading one of my backups when reading 3 books. And I believe I will have completed every prompt, because I've definitely read at night almost the entire reading challenge. And then I've read a book with a pink cover. I've read 2 books with a pink cover. I've read a book with 250 words. I've read a thriller or horror book. And, read a new to you author. Yeah, also done that. So we will have completed all these prompts. And then if we pull up the bingo board, so we've read a book in the dark. We've read a horror thriller. We've read a new to you author. We've read a book with pink on the cover. We've read a book with less than 250 pages. We've listened to a spooky playlist. So we've done all of those things. We just have the last 3, which could make for a fun Thursday. All right. I will check in with you when we've got updates and sweet treats and horror movies. Hello. Good morning and happy last day of Summerween. I know, I'm looking a little disheveled, per usual. But we're fed. We need to get dressed because we got to go to the store to get some things. And I figured since we're going to the store to get some things, we will also go to the store to complete our last 3 bingo card spots. What am I saying? Yeah, our last 3 spots on bingo for Summerween, which are make a cool beverage, make a tasty treat, and then watch a horror movie. So I figure we can do those 3 things this day, the last day of Summerween. I've already done like some rough edits on this vlog, so I can get it up. I stayed up last night and I finished Last Summer. And unfortunately, I gave it a 3. I think, like I mentioned previously, is I just really didn't connect with any of the characters. And not that I'm saying you have to like characters to connect with the story. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I know there's been some like discourse on Instagram about people being like, I can't understand where the character's coming from, so therefore I can't read the story. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I just didn't find any of the characters like super compelling for me. I think maybe because we were going through like all of their POVs that it just kind of detracted away from the story, like from each character. Because I feel like I mentioned, I felt like Carrie, Jason, and Patrick were the 3 characters that I was most compelled by. I'm going to use the word compelled because, like I mentioned, I didn't particularly like any of the characters. There wasn't anybody who was funny. Like the spunkiness came off annoying to me. I don't know. All the characters just didn't land with me. But for Jason, Carrie, and Patrick, I felt like they had the most, the challenges they were facing and how they were acting made sense to me as characters. So I could sympathize with their plight. You know what I mean? But the rest of them, I just really couldn't get behind. I mean, even, I would say, Mikey's plight was pretty bad, but he was just such a little shit that I had no interest. I did guess correctly for the most part with, the reveal and stuff like that. And it made sense. I was like, yep, this totally tracks. I'm with you here on this. But yeah, I think just because I didn't really like the characters all that much, I just didn't care. And I said, I feel like that's particularly important with something like a thriller or a slasher is you do, either the characters have to be super compelling. I think for today, as we're running errands and stuff, I think I'm going to finish, what are you eating now? I think I'm going to finish Yesteryear because I'm 60% of the way through it. And I feel like that could be a good way to round out Summerween because it is a bit of a thriller as well. But even though I cannot stand that character, she is compelling as a character. I am intrigued on what's going to happen to her. Almost because, I dislike her so much that I'm enjoying seeing her get what's coming to her. So I feel like it still works. Whereas this one, I was just, very ambivalent towards the character's outcomes. I think overall, the character I was rooting for the most was Patrick. Because we learned very early on, I don't remember if I mentioned this, but we learned very early on that Patrick's sister was murdered in college. And that's kind of why he got into horror movies and everything like that, as a coping mechanism and created this group and all of this stuff. So I found that most compelling. And I was like, I wish we would have just stayed with Patrick longer because I think I would have cared more. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I know a lot of people read this for Summerween, so I'd be super interested to see what other people are thinking. I'm going to try to find some videos or reviews. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get ready and run some errands.